Hey guys, Football Observer here, bringing you another Premier League review show, reviewing the opening weekend of Project Restart. Yes, the Premier League is well and truly back underway. It has returned. And the opening weekend of Project Restart actually did throw up many goals and plenty of talking points that we're going to get into as the final sprint, so to speak, to the finish line of the 2019-2020 Premier League season well and truly got underway. So, without further ado, let's begin. We're going to begin with a fixture that kicked off the opening weekend, and that happened at Carrow Road, where Southampton came out as 3-0 winners over Norwich City on Friday night, thanks to goals from Danny Ings, Stuart Armstrong and Nathan Redmond. For Norwich, this seems to all but confirm that they're going down this season. They've still got a chance, of course, but it's going to be a very, very tough struggle in order to keep their heads above the water, so to speak. But it was always going to be tough for them. It was always going to be tough considering that they've got a small squad, a young squad that lacks experience at a top level. And also the lack of investment that they had over the summer. I think they were the team that spent the least in the transfer market. So it was always going to be a tough ask for them to stay up. And they've always considered this season to be a bit of a bonus anyway. I don't think many people expected them to come up last season. So this has been a sort of free swing sort of season for them, a chance to enjoy it. So unfortunately for them, they seem to be going down. But they've actually dug deep and have provided a lot of fight, and it's going to be interesting to see how they react to being in the Championship for next season. I imagine that they could lose a few of their top players, as a few of their players have certainly impressed this season. But it will be interesting to see how they go on from here. As for Southampton, it's a good win. I like Ralph Hasenhüttl. I'm happy that he signed a new contract over the break, so to speak, over the lockdown period. But don't be surprised if in the near future he isn't tempted away by making a big step up from the Saints, with all due respect, of course. But I would be very surprised if there weren't many teams that are higher in the Premier League that are interested in capturing him when or if their current manager does leave. Our next game brings us to the second Friday night game that took place that night between Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspurs. The game ended 1-1 thanks to Steven Bergwijn opening the scoring for Spurs, whilst Bruno Fernandes converted a penalty in the second half after Eric Dyer brought down Paul Pogba in the penalty area to make the scores equal. It was a match that lacked any real moments of quality. It was just sort of below average sort of beginning of the season sort of feel to it, with both teams sort of feeling their way back into the season. But of course, with the break that they had at the time that they had, European football is very much the goal for both sides here. Making it into them European places, the race for them European places, is certainly what these two teams are aiming for. 2 points dropped here for both sides, and considering that a team like Wolves got a big win this weekend, as we'll go into later, of course, it doesn't help either team. And besides, I really can't see either team making it into the top four myself, so I don't think it really matters on that too much. Of course, for Spurs, they have all their players back. Same with United, and this is where we can really begin to judge Jose Mourinho, I feel. With his new Tottenham squad. Now that he's got all his players back, we can start to see if he's learned from the mistakes of the past, if he's going to try and adapt his football in any kind of way. This is what we can start to see over the coming weeks and into obviously next season, whilst United, they still have question marks over their consistency. If this was played before the break, I have probably very little doubt that United would have won this game. However, the break happened. People came back from injuries and stuff like that, so it was going to be a tough ask for both teams. Race for European football for both moves on to the next game. Our next game saw two cracking goals at either end provide a fantastic finale to what was an average game between Watford and Leicester. Ben Chilwell thought he'd won it with a fierce strike in the dying embers of the match. However, Craig Dawson had other ideas as he provided a great acrobatic effort in injury time to equalise for Watford to make the score 1-1 between the Hornets and the Foxes. And basically this is just another point towards Watford's survival bid. It's going to be tough, but I think that with the manager that they've got and with the players that they've got, the big players I'm talking about, they may just survive to live another season. As for Leicester though, it's a point towards their fight towards Champions League places to remain in them. I think they have just about enough about them to remain in them places. I think what they did earlier in the season as well has provided them with a good base and platform in which they can stay in them top 4 places. And I think for the Foxes, Champions League football for next season is going to definitely happen. Our next game saw a Brighton fight back as the Seagulls came from a goal down to beat Arsenal 2-1 at the Amex Stadium. It was a first half that lacked anything of real quality. However, the one major talking point occurred when Bernd Leno has had to be stretchered off injured after a collision with Neil Maupay. It proved to be controversial. Many of the Arsenal faithful considered Maupay to be a villain, and it got even more controversial in the second half as Maupay was the man to score the winner for Brighton after Pepe had scored the opening goal for Arsenal to break their deadlock, and Lewis Dunk had scored the equaliser following a goal-mouth scramble, with goal line technology this time working for Brighton and for the Premier League in general. The Arsenal have now had back-to-back defeats. The only silver lining for them, other than Pepe's stunning goal, was that Saka looked a really, really good player, and even he looks to be on his way out the door, considering that he only has a year left on his contract, and we know how Arsenal are with tying up contracts in recent years. But of course, the goal overall for the Gunners is European football, getting a European football place. And with every passing game, it seems, it's becoming more and more of a struggle each week, because I don't see where the consistency is going to come from. And especially because consistency is something that the majority of teams that are after European football lack. Arsenal are just the epitome of that. They are inconsistent FC, so to speak. As for Brighton, though, this is a massive 3 points to put towards their relegation fight. Will they stay up? I honestly do think that there are 3 worse teams than Brighton. So I do think that in that respect, they have a very good chance of staying up. But again, they're going to have to put together a few victories as well. And of course, like most teams, they've got a pretty tough run in as the season reaches its close. Our next game sees us off to the London Stadium, where Wolves came out as 2-0 winners over West Ham thanks to 2 second-half goals from Raul Jimenez and Pedro Neto. Wolves' great season continues, and they are probably in line to hunt down a Champions League football spot for next season, down to the wire. Their currently good position suggests that they are currently level on points with Manchester United, who are in 5th place. They are currently 5 points off of Chelsea, who lie in 4th place, and I would say they've got the squad to do it. They've got the squad that's good enough to hunt Chelsea down all the way to the final day of the season, where coincidentally they face Chelsea in a game that could decide who gets into the top 4 and who gets left out. So keep your eyes on that one. Of course, there's a lot of football to be played during that time, a lot of points to be won and a lot of points to be lost, but it is just one scenario that could play out come the end of the season. As for West Ham, their fight against relegation takes a massive hit with no points gained. They've got some tough fixtures coming up, and for a team that seemed that they wanted the season to be null and void come the end of it, I think we all know why, because they are worried that the Championship is going to be their footballing destination for next season, and with some big players there, it looks like it's going to be a few darker days ahead for the Hammers, as they came out as the losers here. Our next game saw Crystal Palace secure a 2-0 victory over Bournemouth at the Vitality Stadium on Saturday evening. Luka Milivojevic scored a cracking free kick before Jordan Ayew doubled Palace's lead later on in the first half. This is a great 3 points for Palace. This seems to have secured them a very healthy and very respectable mid-table finish. A mid-table finish that arguably a lot of fans and a lot of people associated with football probably didn't expect from this Palace side, with many considering to be scrapping for a relegation fight. However, credit goes to Roy Hodgson and for Palace for seemingly overcoming the odds and putting in a bit of an overachiever's finish as they currently sit in 9th place. But for Bournemouth, this is another game and another loss for them, and they're another side that is struggling to fight relegation. They had a lot of injuries this season, so they have a bit of a scapegoat there. They had a lot of injuries to key players and big injuries at that. But now that they've got everyone together, maybe this was the kind of game where you can say, all right, get some minutes under everybody's belt, and then go again for the final 9 games of the season. So it'll be interesting to see if the Cherries can push on from here, recover, and beat the fight for relegation, or whether they are in fact doomed for the Championship for the next campaign. Next, we move on to Sunday's games, and first up was Newcastle United versus Sheffield United, where the Magpies ran out as 3-0 winners over the Blades. The game seemed to change on the red card to John Egan. Before that, not very much had happened, but after John Egan's second yellow card of the game, which provided obviously a red, Newcastle took full control. A defensive error from Ender Stevens didn't really help matters for the Blades either, which allowed St Maximan to score the opening goal, and from there the floodgates opened. Matt Ritchie scored the second for the Magpies, and even Joe Linton, yeah, not a mistake, Joe Linton actually scored for Newcastle. The end of the world is coming, blah blah blah. Joe Linton scored his second goal of the season and his third goal, and Newcastle's third goal overall. For the Magpies, this is a very good 3 points to put towards their very respectable mid-table finish. Again, I imagine a lot of people probably thought that Newcastle were going to struggle this season, but they've actually done pretty well, all things considered, I think, and a mid-table finish looks to be on the cards for the run-in. As for the Blades, a missed opportunity to climb to 5th, a missed opportunity overall, and again, they just seem to fall apart on the red card decision. The red card to a key player in their sort of system occurred, and they just seem to fall apart. Will they recover in time for their next game? Only time will tell. Our next game saw Chelsea score a quick-fire double to come from a goal behind to beat Aston Villa 2-1 at Villa Park, and in doing so, their victory also means that they maintain their strong grip on top 4. Courtney Houser scored the opening goal in the first half for Aston Villa, some would say, and I would say, against the run of play. However, Chelsea did fire back in the second half with a quick-fire double, with Christian Pulisic and Olivier Giroud both scoring within a minute of each other, as the Blues went on to take all 3 points. For Villa, they fall behind the pack even more, so to speak, in the relegation zone. They certainly have the players to get out of this situation. They're going to have a very tough fight to survive, but they've definitely got the players to do so. But it is a little bit daunting considering the amount of money that they've spent in the summer, considering the amount of investment that went into the club since returning to the Premier League. It's sort of a bit worrying that they are in this position in the first place, and that it might be tough for them to get out. But like I say, they have the players to do it, but of doing it is another question. As for the Blues, they maintain their hold on top 4, and with Wolves winning this weekend, and United, Spurs, Arsenal, and so on dropping points, proved to be a pretty decent weekend for them. Also, Leicester also dropped points, so maybe a 3rd place finish for Frank Lampard and his Chelsea side is on the cards in the future. Our penultimate game was obviously a big game, and it was the Merseyside derby in which Liverpool looked to close in on their first title in 30 years. However, it might be a little bit more prolonged as Liverpool and Everton endured a goalless stalemate at Goodison Park. It was a game in which Liverpool controlled for the most part. Both teams had few chances, but they didn't really test either goalkeeper, but Liverpool controlled possession. Everton looked to counter. In the end, they just cancelled each other out. As I say, this puts off Liverpool's title victory for at least another week or so. As for Everton, though, they dug in and managed to grind out a draw. Mid-table finish looks to be on the cards. This could still yo-yo, but it does seem a mid-table finish is what the Toffees are going to have to endure this season. And finally, we come to the absolute thumping that Manchester City gave Burnley after City came out as 5-0 winners at the Etihad. At kickoff, a plane with a banner that said White Lives Matter Burnley flew over the Etihad Stadium. Burnley as a club were quick to respond to the statement, condemning the actions of those that were responsible for doing this, and fair play to the club for acting so quickly on this issue. And yes, for what it is worth, it was a complete joke of a stunt that they pulled, an absolute ridiculous moment, and for the people or just the person that was involved and decided to do this, absolutely, utterly ridiculous. Back to the football though, the demolition job carried out by City was thanks to goals from Phil Foden, who scored twice, and Riyad Mahrez, who also scored twice, and also a goal by David Silva. As previously stated, City are just trying to prolong the seemingly inevitable title victory of Liverpool for as long as they can. They're just trying to prolong it, keep on winning, keep on doing their job, and also probably build as much momentum as they can for when the Champions League resumes at the end of the season. Whilst for Burnley, it's a comfortable mid-table finish, it looks like, on their parts. Sean Dyche has once again managed to save Burnley. I can't see them dropping further than where they are right now. They're going to be in and around that sort of area where they are right now, which is, I think, 10th. So, fair play to Burnley for that. Fair play to Sean Dyche. And they'll just see this again as a bit of a free swing to get back into it. And then they'll set their sights and focus on their next game. And that wraps up this Premier League review show for the opening weekend of Project Restart. But guys, if you have any thoughts, comments or opinions of your own on any of this round of fixtures talking points or results, or any of the implications that you think will follow these results for how the rest of the season is going to pan out, I'd love to read your comments in the comments section down below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show. And I will soon speak with you all again soon in another video.